called A Public Affair. Title for you. Okay. I remember the moment when I first realised I was fat. It was in grade 1. My friend Abby had come over to my house for a play date, not realising I had a pool, and therefore not bringing any swimmers with her. Mum kindly offered to lend her one of my old one-piece suits. It was a particularly cute number, equipped with bows, frills, ruffles, and a cute pink and white checkered pattern. I used to wear it when I was 4, and I still, even now, remember how pretty it made me feel. When Mum first pulled it out of the cupboard for Abby, I remember thinking, Mum, please, I wore that when I was 4. There's no way it's going to fit a 6-year-old now. But it did. It did fit. In fact, it was loose on Abby. That night, before I went to bed, I stood in the mirror and looked at my body. Suddenly I realised just how much bigger I was than other kids. Of course, kids had called me fat before, but I just thought they were jerks. It never occurred to me that they might actually be right. As the years passed, my weight got much worse. My parents tried everything. Doctors, dietitians, personal trainers, extreme exercise regimes, clinical studies, experimental drugs, and every fad diet that was ever created. It is because of a fad diet that I have an unnatural fear and hatred of celery that still persists to this day. Nothing ever worked, and my weight escalated every year that passed. I was 80 kilograms by the time I was 11. Perhaps if the battle with my body could have been concealed and kept private, it wouldn't have been so bad. It wouldn't have coloured every aspect of my life like an insidious pack of crayons. But that's the thing about weight issues. Whether you're too thin or too fat, it's a public affair. The morning of my first gynecological appointment was spent Googling how to not fart in the face of your gynecologist. It was all I could think about as I lay back in the chair, feet awkwardly placed in the sinister-looking stirrups, staring at a landscape painting on the wall next to me, pretending I was somewhere else. The doctor tried to make conversation with me, which I struggled to maintain while she was poking and prodding. I just desperately wanted to ask, has anyone ever actually farted in her face before? There was a twinge of pain as she inserted the speculum, and then I heard the doctor utter an ominous-sounding from between my legs, a place where ominous-sounding do not belong. She told me to get dressed and meet her in her office. The paper cover on the chair rustled loudly in the clinical exam room as I got up to get dressed. All the while, the sound of her ricocheted around my head like a pinball. Walking back into the office, the doctor was sitting at her desk, arms crossed, brows drawn. This must be her bad news face, I thought, almost losing my breakfast in her fur next to the door. I knew the Weet-Bix that morning had been a bad idea. To cut a long story short, I was wrong. The doctor proceeded to tell me I had an imperforate hymen, which could only be removed by surgical means. And what is an imperforate hymen, you ask? It's Mother Nature's way or idea of an inbuilt chastity belt, or, if you're religious, God's way of ensuring that if you're terrified of surgery, you have an 80% chance of joining a nunnery by default. Essentially, it was an industrial strength hymen. Not only would it stop me from having a normal physical relationship, but she couldn't examine me to see what was going on with my body. The doctor then informed me she would not operate on me unless I lost a significant amount of weight. She asked all the condescending questions I'd been subjected to my entire life thus far. Did I know I was morbidly obese? Had I even tried losing weight? I had? Then prove it. What had I tried? Because here's the thing about doctors and their opinion of overweight people. We're either dumb and don't realise we're fat, or we're Dorito scoffing liars who just hang out around Krispy Kreme just waiting for their latest creation. After I burst into tears and sobbed for a good 20 minutes, the doctor suggested weight loss surgery to me, and that's when the decision to have surgery was made. There are two things I remember most about that moment. The first is how broken I felt. How I was like a defective model that had escaped through quality control, leaving the factory of life. My body was this horrible, malfunctioning, prison-like cage that I could never escape. It wouldn't lose weight when I tried, wouldn't stop producing the wrong hormone levels, wouldn't let me have a chance at a normal relationship. My body was the enemy. The second thing I remember is the way the doctor's office didn't smell like a doctor's office. There was no strong odour of disinfectant or clinical emptiness like there usually would be in a doctor's hospital office. Nothing to focus on, to ground me on to that moment. So I didn't just float away on a cloud of self-loathing and despair. There was nothing. I couldn't smell a damn thing.